this synchronicity plays in our psyche, in our everyday life. We go and choose perfume with our unconsciousness. Something, the little notes remind us of something, of a safe place. And this memory inside your head collides with the real experience. And this is two streams colliding, and that suggests you when you choose something. You fall in love because it reminds you something sometimes, or you feel this recognition, like very deep feeling of recognition. Everything is very connected in this world. And I guess this is one of the biggest thing I want to bring to my work, with my work, to the audience, that we have this fragmented thinking, psyche, and with turning your attention to the synchronicities, you understand how unseparated you are from each other as human beings, and how unseparated us with the world. And that is not only beautiful philosophical thing I'm telling you. This is something I see in my reproductivity, something I see with the empirical numbers.
Welcome to Connecting with Coincidence once again. And today we have a remarkable young woman to tell us about her remarkable look at synchronicity. We recognize that Carl Jung and Nobel Prize winner Wolfgang Pauli collaborated to try to put psychology and physics together. Well, today our guest is going to put them together yet more clearly, because what most of us are beginning to recognize is that the subjective experience of meaningful coincidences is as real as the trees that surround me here in Charlottesville, Virginia. We need to include our subjective in what we call science. Anna Taranova has developed a way of thinking mathematically in physics terms about how meaningful coincidences can be studied scientifically, mathematically, used not only to understand a coincidence in the present, but to be able to predict when a person is more capable of experiencing, when in time and space is more capable, more ready to experience meaningful coincidences. So welcome to the show, Anna Taranova. It's a delight to have you with us. And I will introduce you now as an artist, a writer, and an interdisciplinary researcher, educated at Central St. Martin's in London. With training in psychology and philosophy, she is developing the psi model, which she also calls the field of coincidence, as a formal framework for human perception. Her work unifies fragmented approaches to synchronicity, intuition, and altered states of consciousness, and puts them together into a coherent structure that can be tested empirically. Having lived in 10 countries and studied more than 70 cultural contexts, she investigates how language, sensitivity, and environment shape cognition. You can see her links in her bio. They are very impressive and somewhat difficult to read for me as you will find them. But today we will begin to untangle and clarify some of what Anna is trying to tell us about the developing new science of synchronicity. Welcome, Anna Taranova, to Connecting with Coincidence.
Thank you very much. I'm so grateful to be here with you today.
Well, it's delightful to have you with us, and having talked with you before, I know that you have a great deal to tell the world about the way the reality is that we don't recognize. So tell us about how you got into this, describing how, since your youth, you had experienced altered states of perception.
I remember thank you for the question. I remember myself being a kid, a very curious kid. And I guess without realizing it, I've started studying consciousness with detectives. And by the age 12, I had existential crisis. That's where I began to read spiritual knowledges. And then around 14 years old, I switched to psychology. I had this intense intuitive feeling inside me, which I couldn't explain to myself, which word couldn't explain it yet with the science. So I think that was a really good motivation for me. And it was the main part of my interest. I've studied art, but I always studied art in the way of exploring my ideas through art. I guess that helped me a lot with my work nowadays because that helps you think out of the box. So to discover something new, you always need to see from a new angle. And by the age 33, I collected the range of knowledges. And then one day I had again experiencing this very intense feeling, intuitive feeling. And I've been able to somehow, with all of my knowledge, write it down and describe it. And I thought, what if I put it in formula? It was very exciting time because it was like a dream. Everything what I collected came to one picture, and I woke up and I started to write, and I was writing till now. I do this, and I write like I always knew this. That's a very interesting experience for me and very joyful. And with the time I studied consciousness in terms of psychology, I went to biology to understand how is it connected, our consciousness to the biological processes. And then I started to read more and more and more. So I went to different sciences. I'm not a physicist, but I do understand enough to explain myself. And when I wrote this knowledge, which I had a really clear idea of that day, I've been able to explain it firstly in metaphors. And then after metaphors, I put metaphorical language, I put it in the physical formula. And what I see, I didn't even realize that it was synchronicity at the beginning, although obviously I read a lot about synchronicities. I was just explaining what I'm feeling. And then after I guess 2 months of work, I start to realize that it's exactly the process which Carl Jung was describing. And for some reason, after trying to explain this intuitive feeling, I don't know why, but I were curious to see, wow, maybe some same mechanism work outside of our consciousness. And I tried to see how this formula works in outside world, and it was surprising. It just works in physics, in biology, in chemistry, range of sciences, and it describes exactly the process. So I came up with the idea to try it on the real metrics of people to see if it works. And I have a colleague. He's a physicist. He is working. He has a PhD, and he is working with developing rockets. I explained him what I want to try to see how it works in a real reliable data sources, and we went to the Python programming language. We put through this formula those data. We took breath, respiration, and we took electrodermal activity, which is electrodermal activity. This is how your skin reacts into emotions. And those people who we took data from, they were watching different kind of videos. So we see on the graphics which we came up with very clear peaks which collide on the peaks of their emotions. I call it catching a lightning inside the body. This moment of synchronicity inside the body, I call it a lightning, and it was amazing. We still need to work on some formalization of it, because by the time I start to work more and more, everything became more and more clear for me, and I added some extra metrics which doesn't exist in any system for the synchronicities. I think the first of all, I might explain on an easy example with the pendulums.
Yes.
Yeah, if you.
Yes.
Yeah. I guess you heard of these pendulums, anti-stress toys, which we put on the table sometimes. Basically two metallic balls, and you push them, and with the time they go into synchronization. They go into mirror synchronization like this. That's called antiphase synchronization. They move with exactly with the same speed, and they just mirror each other. And they can synchronize in phase, so they go like this, in the same direction. And I start to see how our day's science explain this with the physics. And they explain it that those two metallic balls are hanged on one hanger. So that's why this process happening. And I thought that when I had this deep feeling, which I described, I understood that the very important part of this process is when those balls meet in the same spot of time and space. So they, I would say in easy language, they pass information to each other like mirrors. And with the passing information, when they hit to each other at these times, they start to synchronize. And
there's something about, let me say, kissing each other.
Exactly.
That kissing each other, and the metaphor is not lost on me, that kissing brings them together.
And science didn't, I found out the experiments when they put the barrier between those two balls to see if the synchronicity changes. And this experiment exists, and it shows that they do change, but because of the external noise, such as they didn't put it in the box or something, everyone said that it's not correct because it was wind, it was noise, and etc. But it already have a little proof. I did myself a protocol, full protocol, to show the process, because I believe from studying all of the process and seeing the numbers and little details, I'm pretty sure that it has a major impact when they meet.
When they meet, it's essential. It's essential that they meet, and that's a central part of what you're talking about. Is there's unity there, the beginnings of a connection to something much bigger. When there is this coming together moment, which then allows for the synchronicity to happen. Let's use another example from your life. Where years ago you had painted an image that was dedicated to psychic wholeness. And then you ran into someone. And somehow that image that you'd painted was enacted in reality. Tell us about that. Tell us about that.
That was a very, very interesting story, and I guess it was the first time when it was the moment of very strong synchronicity. I was married, and when I got divorced, it obviously was a hard time for me. And I was painting a painting, and that was about self-blooming, being in inner harmony. It was metaphorical painting. It was totally taken from my head and my soul. And I kept this painting and I moved forward. And 3 years later, I did study spiritual knowledges when I was younger. But then I switched totally to the science. And then one day I woke up and I said to myself, I don't get the answers I need. I literally spoke with my voice, and I was telling, like, I need someone to give me a new knowledges. And with this time, this is a very interesting story. I met very randomly a woman, which I met like for 3 minutes or something, and she came to me, said to me a compliment, and we never meet again. And then I had a dream, and this woman was connected to the. It ended up that this woman was somehow connected to the very important person to me, and I meet her the other day in the restaurant. She invites me to join her table. I said, no, sorry, I'm enjoying myself today. I have this date with myself. And then when I was walking from the restaurant, it happens she sits just on the exit, and she again invites me. And I was like, okay, that should be something there. And I sit with these words, and they start to speak about what they are doing. She was with 2 friends, and she told that she is doing retreats, and she's very interested in what I'm doing, and I work with art as well, and she wanted me to be an art director of their company. And the next day she invited me to play a game, a spiritual game, and that was the time they bring me the metaphorical cards. There were 2 ladies who I never saw before, and they didn't see each other before. Before the game, they took those metaphorical cards, which are very, very different all of the time. And they were asking me, what you do? I said, this and this. And one of the things I said, I'm a painter. They said, show us a painting of yours. And it happens that it was the one I had in my screen. I showed exactly this self-blooming, and they were like, wow, we just took the cards, the one lady and the other, with exactly same painting. And they bring in me the cards of the painting I had in my head, and I presented it. And I was, at this point, I felt like I'm exactly where I need to be.
So the painting you had done 3 years ago was
Yeah.
directly matched by one of the cards. And
Two.
somehow, two of the cards. And somehow that painting represented wholeness to you, as the cards must have. And then somehow you encountered a man.
That all started with what Carl Jung called animus. I think this is a very important part of synchronicities. Why? Because everything what is in contrast, just like a battery with plus and minus, makes the synchronicity, gives the synchronicity more strength. So we have everything in our world in, let's say everything is dark or white, we think, which is wrong. I guess it's fragmented thinking. We have woman and man. We have animals in pairs. We have electricity minus and plus. So I believe this plays a lot in synchronicity mechanism, which I also put in my formula. But for human being, I guess it is a very important point when we meet our anima or animus, because it reflects your inner parts and it helps you to become to the wholeness. And when I met this person of mine, I guess all of those synchronicities started to happen to me when I felt them. And with the painting also, that happened to me after meeting this person. And we had, I'm very skeptical. And I have critical thinking. And at the beginning, I was like, if I'm going crazy, or maybe I'm romanticizing, but I'm quite a self-aware person. And at the time, more and more time passes, more and more synchronicity occurs to me. And I'm like, I can't resist it. This happens. And it's not my process of romanticizing, or it just, I see it as a fact.
Yeah, you see the facts. You have to observe. You have to gather the data. And one big part of the data was the two cards that matched your wholeness painting that just came out of you. And Jung was very much involved with wholeness. That's what he thinks individuation is leading us towards, a form of wholeness, which involves being able to put the plus and minus together, the anima and the animus, because each of us has both, as the yin yang description tells us, that inside of each man is a woman, is a feminine principle. Inside each woman is a male principle, and also they can get blurred and put together in various ways too, but that's saying it in the more plus minus way. After you met this animus, who somehow beautifully mirrored your anima, the feminine of you, and you'd met these women with the cards that matched your painting, synchronicities started happening a lot, and you had many of them with this man.
Many of with this man, and not only him. Just after we met, I started. That was the time I said I don't receive the answers from the science enough.
Yeah.
Then I started not only have synchronicities with him, which was major. I also start to meet people, which bring me answers. Sometimes I would recognize those people from like inside. Sometimes I had a very interesting story with the girl when I went to this retreats. I was working as an art director, but I was collecting also the knowledge from there. And I had this, I would say, recognition of this
recognition.
person.
Yeah.
And first day we met, we already felt like very familiar, and we met in Ibiza, and we were driving to the other spot. We were having like meetings at the different spots, and it turned out that I was going with her in her car, and at some point something clicked in my head, and there were cat running next to us.
There were
across
what?
the street, a cat, and something clicked in my head, and I turned on this lady and I say, I guess you had a cat, and your cat's name was Tequila, which is very not popular name, let's say, for the cats. And she was driving the car at this moment, so she got like, whoa. She got scared because basically she had this cat like ages ago, and it's very uncommon name to give for a cat. And I guess this major synchronicities show you which way to follow, and they bring your psyche, if you follow them, to the wholeness.
And they bring your psyche to the wholeness. And that's very much what Jung tried to suggest to people, that when properly interpreted, you have to be careful and be skeptical as you are, and deciding which ones to do, but they bring wholeness. We started off talking about Anna, about the 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 pendulums and the two balls coming together, and that's somehow they exchange information and energy as they are kissing each other, as they are touching each other. And there's something in that metaphor with the balls that I think you're using perhaps in meeting these women, seeing the cards, and meeting this animus that you're also using as a metaphor for these meetings, the pendulums coming together.
That's exactly. I love how you understand me without the words sometimes. This is exactly those moments when we exchange the information to become our psyche wholeness, wholenessness inside us, and that start to go wildly. We would have same numbers. There is one number 143, which stands for I love you, and we had a lot of stories, like personal stories with this person around this number. He lived in the flat. One time I was coming to his flat, and he just moved, so I never knew the number of the flat. And I was calling him, open the door and like tell me the number, and he was like 1, and I was like 43, and he became speechless.
Well,
Speechless.
that and the tequila are just two small examples, I'll call them small, of what we can call your psychic ability, but also your logic. The 143 was just part of the same thread of your relationship to the balls coming together, so you could make that guess. I could make a guess of an apartment number of 23 when I was hitchhiking on August 23rd in California down Route 1 with somebody, and I had 5 rides. 2 plus 3 is 5. And the final ride took us to an apartment number 23. Uh, those things are more common than I think people realize. But when they happen to us like that, they're more than that. They hit us, they create a feeling. Now, part of what you are trying to describe for humanity is how synchronicities can be looked at objectively. And a key part of what you're describing is how various threads or various elements or various streams, as you call them, come together and create a density that becomes the likelihood of a synchronicity happening. Now, these threads are very important part of how you are doing your work and thinking about your work. So could you tell us, maybe using the anima animus metaphor here, or somehow convey to us the various threads that your equations and your AI attempts, your AI methods and your research are using to describe this density of these threads, of these streams coming together, marking a critical zeta that you use to say this, when this hits this number, then people are likely, with all the streams coming together, to be experiencing a meaningful coincidence.
Which after gives the RT in my formula reaction. And I love this example. One day you pass by your favorite restaurant, or just a normal restaurant, and then you hear the music. And that was the music you used to listen with your, let's say, first love. And your consciousness doesn't even understand yet. Then you feel the smell, exactly the same perfume that this person has used. And then you don't consciously understand it, but you have this deep feeling inside you raises. And then you get goosebumps. And let's put it as a process, as a steams. So one steam is the smell, the other steam is the noise, and they meet at the same time and a dot of time and space. And it could be even more flows. It could be, we have 5 sensors. We have eyes, we have taste, we have touch, and let's put them as a flows. And if they intersect each other, this is the density that represents the density, and it gives even bigger reaction. So it gives you, physically, it gives you goosebumps for the person. And in physics, biology, and all of the other sciences, that exactly explains a lot of the processes we can observe.
And this is you observing as part of your research.
Yeah.
You're measuring respiration, and you're measuring galvanic skin response. So you're looking at 2 streams, because if you breathe more quickly, that means perhaps, and more shallowly, it means you may be anxious, and the other direction, you may be really relaxed. But it's a separate from the way your normal way of breathing might be. And then your skin picks up some emotion. So you are able to see at least measurably 2 aspects of the streams coming together to create a density that begins to indicate the beginning or the likelihood of a coincidence, of a meaningful coincidence.
That's totally correct. And as much as we use more flows, it gives the bigger reaction, obviously.
The more we get.
Yeah, the more we get. And
let's list all the streams that that you are paying attention to, because there are a bunch of them that people should pay attention to. And what are some of the streams that you are asking people to pay attention to understand the density of the streams coming together that mark a coincidence?
First of all, I think it would be nice examples to give some same streams in biology, for example.
Good.
Sperm and the egg, they meet at one point of time and space. The astrophysical cycles, when the Venus, there is a 8-year Venus cycle, and the Earth going around each other. They meet at one time and space, one time and space. And then when we add some extra events to that, that gives a bigger reaction. That what I've showed also in my work. I managed to see that my formula not only describes the process, but it can predict the process. So out of that, I did 2 predictions. First prediction were about the gravitational waves cluster. Cluster, it's an event with the small gaps in between of gravitational waves occurring, 3 or 4, which happens very rarely. And I see some astrophysical processes which collide between each other, just as those streams. So I went to retrospective and see if it works. And it gave me very good results, exactly what happened in year 2017. There were first cluster which were observed, and first cluster we observed, and it has a lot of data to work with. So I used that data, and that allowed me to see to understand more of an inner logic of the formula. And based on this, I did the prediction for this year, for August. I don't have yet the results. They are pending because the statistics comes after 1.5 years around this time, because observatories, they need to clean the noise and work through those numbers. But the other prediction I made is about magnetic storms. And prediction I made on magnetic storms, I did it on 3rd of September, and it's a very huge news for me to share with you. I did it on 3rd of September, so I predicted the window of the magnetic storm. I predicted the strength of the magnetic storm based on my formula. They have the graduation of beginning from G1, which is really small, going to G5. I not only predicted the month, and those kind of storms, G3, which occurred, they don't happen often. They happen twice a year, around twice a year. So it's already hard to predict a month. Obviously, it's very, very low chance of predicting a small window of 3 days. And also, not only that, but I also predicted the strength of this magnetic storm. And nowadays, science can't do this. I was checking, obviously were checking the news all of the days. On 29th, there were not even an alert of this magnetic storm. And 30th of September, I woke up, I read all of the news, and this day my friend calls me and she says, I have a headache. You know why? Because this magnetic storm. And I was thinking inside me, this person, close friend of mine, she knows about magnetic storm, which I was being able to predict. That was very major.
And you did it by taking several geophysical, astrophysical streams and putting them together to find a density that you could see was going to happen of these streams coming together. And that density happened, and that resulted in the magnetic storm. So you're able to suggest that keeping a monitor on astrophysical streams applies all over the place at different levels of what's going on in this reality, which is so much needed now to recognize that whether you use the term fractal or not, that patterns are repeated at higher and lower levels, or lower levels, higher levels, whatever we mean by lower and higher, but patterns are repeated. And you love patterns. I know that because I love patterns. And there's something about patterns that give us a sense of comfort, because the chaos of this reality tends to be confusing. Now, let's bring this stream idea to the multiple streams that our viewers and listeners can pay attention to, and get some idea of how they can create a density, just the way you described the magnetic storm being a result of several astrophysical streams. So what the variables include, we've already talked about respirations and galvanic skin response, which are measures of emotion, sometimes called anxiety, but it could be other things. You can have a neutral term for that. It means something is elevated or not, going in the other direction. But you also include thoughts, not just current thoughts, but thoughts about the future, intuitions, which is a wide-ranging variety of streams going through us. So would you please elaborate on the streams that we human beings, not out there in space, we human beings who are tuned into synchronicity can pay attention to, that create that density that's likely to result in our recognition of a meaningful coincidence?
I would suggest even our audience to play a little game. I think it's a very, very amazing skill not to use your little kid inside you. And let's see the world as it exactly works like this. Everything meets at some point. We meet when we need to talk with each other, even for today. We need to arrange this call, and we meet with you to make this beautiful talk. When we find the perfume, we don't understand even how major role this synchronicity plays in our psyche, in our everyday life. We go and choose perfume with our unconsciousness. Something, the little notes remind us of something, of a safe place. And this memory inside your head collides with the real experience. And this is two streams colliding, and that suggests you when you choose something. You fall in love because it reminds you something sometimes, or you feel this recognition, like very deep feeling of recognition. I think the very, very powerful fact is that the life is born in the meeting point of the sperm and the egg. And I also see with these synchronicities that everything is very connected in this world. And I guess this is one of the biggest thing I want to bring to my work, with my work, to the audience, that we have this fragmented thinking psyche, and with turning your attention to the synchronicities, you understand how unseparated you are from each other as human beings, and how unseparated us with the world. And that is not only beautiful philosophical thing I'm telling you. This is something I see in my reproductivity, something I see with the empirical numbers.
And that showing interconnectedness empirically is vital at this time. It's a lot of people say everything's connected. But the question is, how are we connected? Because the variables involving connection are many with each other. Sometimes we're just not that connected with each other. Many people are not connected to nature, and that's that can be a problem, but it's there to be connected with. But let me just do what was interesting to me, my own experience about connection, that I like to go to dance, and it's a free form of dance where you just do what you feel like doing. But actually, there's a lot to understanding this because it's an improvisational thing, but improvisation is built on some basic principles. So the way in which we dance has some underlying principles with them. And you have to find those principles, and then from those principles, you can do a lot of different things. And that's a description of reality as well. As once you get tuned in to the basics, you can see a lot of stuff. And some of the basics you're talking about are watching the streams come together, just noticing the meaningful coincidence. But what I'm asking you about is that I've had several, maybe 10 different times now, where when I'm dancing with somebody, usually somebody that I haven't danced with before, we get into the experience of one body and two minds, where the other person can say to me, we are one body right now with two minds, observing this connection between us. And I wonder how you would put that in your scientific terms. How would you describe that in the manner of your research?
I would say that all of the nowadays schools of psychology, they have different methods to bring us to unfragmented thinking. And we have this perception of the world that there is a word and there is us. We are somehow separate. And there is other person and it's me, and we are separated. And me with my research, I not only assume this, I totally see that everything is connected, literally. And I see universe, first of all approaching to the connection. And the connection happens at the coincidence. And I guess this is when this whole system, the whole universe, not because it's only the Earth. I see these processes in the universe. This is when we have this recognition of the unity.
What I just saw are two things that I want to remember, particularly that all these different therapies, psychologies, and spiritual traditions are trying to help us become unfragmented. We are currently very fragmented, and they're trying to bring us to wholeness. And what you're describing, I would almost use the word teleological, that we are drawn, or there is a strong attractor towards which human beings are being drawn, and the universe itself, that we are drawn to this attractor of wholeness, of oneness, and that synchronicities and the dancing experience I just described are part of helping human beings find not only intellectually, but the experience of being moving towards a wholeness for not just us, not just for us with the planet Earth, but for what's all around us.
Your example is very, very lovely. I love it, and I remembered
Thank you.
myself. I love music, and recently I went to instrumental music show, an orchestra with the candle. It's called candlelights here in Spain, and even there, I was sitting and thinking, how beautiful is it that one big group of people, they sound as one organ,
Yeah.
united one
Yeah.
organ.
Yeah.
And this is one more very good example of synchronicities, when not only two streams meet at one point, but how many people are in the orchestra.
So
And
when many streams
yeah,
meet, yeah,
we get this beautiful music.
you get this beautiful feeling. I was at last night. I was at the closing of Yom Kippur, the high holy day of the year for Jews, and there's the last part of it um, called the Nila service, where you stand until the sun goes down, and everybody's singing together, and the vibration of the unity of everyone's heart and mind being there. Just I couldn't sing. I could just be quiet and feel the energy of that field that we were creating together in that one place. That kind of unity experience is what I think you are encouraging humanity to be more open to.
Exactly. And I want to share this story how I found you.
Okay, go
That's
ahead.
also a beautiful story. I was doing some art, like my scientific articles about my research, and I was Googling myself to see if I even appear at Google. And I was looking for myself, and I found you. And I think that's something really beautiful.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And I was able to tell you, and we're getting close to our end for today, that I interviewed someone yesterday who connected me with someone to whom I showed your research ideas, and your ideas fit beautifully with how that person is thinking. And your equations fit nicely with what she's trying to put together. And she's going to do some of her own experiments to test out the beliefs that you two share. To be able to do that the day before you and I have our meeting is another part of the beauty of all this. And it's kind of like I knew a mystical woman with whom I went out to the desert near Los Angeles, and it was morning when we went out to the desert, and she was there in her her very colorful night dress. It was just what she wears when she hangs around the house. Um, and there she was crying and into a stream bed that had no stream in it. And her tears were an attempt to fill in the stream because she was just yearning, calling out for other people to be able to feel what she was experiencing at that moment. And what she was experiencing at that moment was the love of all and the connection that we all have with each other. So I will end with that story and leave one more thing that you might like to tell our audience?
First of all, I would like to thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm really, really thankful, and I feel a lot energies of people, and I am so blessed to share our own energy flirting. I feel very responsible in front of people to ask them to pay attention to these synchronicities. I think these little points, they show the importance of who we truly are in this world.
Well, yeah.
And that is very, very important thing which can change our world. It could be used in medicine. It can be used in mental health majorly. It's very important. It can be used in astrophysics, in medical services, all over.
And what the it is, we've been trying to talk about. And there's still some work to do on your part, and with the help of many others, including me, is to clarify what you have, both scientifically through experiment and through putting it in words and phrases and metaphors that other people can understand. And we've gone a very nice step in that direction in this conversation. And I will continue to be in contact, and I will continue to support what you're doing, because what you're doing is the same as me in a different way, is trying to say the importance of meaningful coincidences in understanding how our reality works and seeing how we're all connected in some form or another. So I thank you very much, Anna Taranova, for our delightful discussion today.
Thank you very much.